Okay, today we're going to start talking about interval notation. Now, interval notation, there are some easy things for you to remember. First of all, you learned that this is less than, this is greater than, depending on what's on either side of the inequality. You also have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. All right, now in this case, you will have an open circle. Remember, we call this open. And of course, you have a solid circle. And we call this solid. Okay? Now, this means it is not included, whereas the solid means is included in the solution. So for instance, let's say you get an answer, and let's say you are given 2y plus 4 is greater than 12. Well, first thing is first, you have to go ahead and solve this problem. Let me go ahead and extend the page. All right, now, with this problem, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. And once I subtract 4, I end up getting 2y is greater than 8. Now, the next step, because what we want to do is we want to isolate our y value. We want to isolate this y value. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. And so I end up getting y is greater than 4. Okay, so that is my solution set. Any number that is greater than 4, I can plug back into this y here, and it would make that whole statement true. Now, if you notice, this statement does not have an equal sign underneath it. So if I plug in 4 for y, the solution would be false. So what we want to do is we want to be able to graph this like we did on our quiz today. So when I graph this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the number 4 here. That's our starting point. Now, if you realize, if you look, this is open. I hope y'all remember that. It is open, so it's an open circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an open circle at 4. Okay? Now, what happens is we want to look at this whole thing and says, okay, all the y values that are greater than 4. Now, if you recall, greater than 4 means it's going to go to the right. Okay? Now, what we want to do is we want to look at just this green graph. Okay? Now, if you notice, where is this arrow going to? Well, arrows go to infinity. All right? So in this case, this graph is going from 4, which is the smallest number, all the way out to infinity. Now, there are a couple of options here. As we told you earlier, this 4 is not included. It is not a solid. It is not solid. Therefore, what we're going to do is we're going to put a parenthesis. Parenthesis is just like saying it has an open circle. Okay? Now, if you notice, this is going to infinity. Now, if we ever make it stop, we take the going to infinity out of the way, basically. So if you notice, if I put a bracket here, that means it would stop. So it no longer would be going to infinity. So that would be the wrong choice. The only other possibility is keeping it as a parenthesis. Now, when I say give me, solve the equation or solve the inequality and put it in interval notation, this is what we call interval notation. All right? And let me give you a few examples of those, okay? That's interval notation. So let me give you a new page. I'm going to show you something. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of things up here. First of all, it's a parenthesis. All right? That means it is open. All right? The other option is a bracket. This means it is solid or closed. Okay? Now, Let's say you get an answer, oh, let's say x is greater than 14. Notice that this is an equal to. So what I would do is I would say, all right, there's my 14. Now, if you notice, this is going to be solid. So I want a solid dot at 14. And it's going to be the x is greater than. So this is going to go from 14. Now, where does the arrow go? It goes all the way to infinity. Now, infinity always has an open. You cannot stop infinity. But look at the 14. 14 has to have a brace because it is included in the solution set. So this right here is what I would ask for when I'd ask for interval notation. Now, sometimes what happens is that we get a number. Let's say we have x, and we want to say it's greater than or equal to -3, but less than or equal to 5. That means that number, whatever that number may be, whatever x is, has to be between -3 and 5. Well, this is a great opportunity. So let's say we're going to graph this. Well, I'm going to put -3 here, and I'm going to put 5 here. Now, as you notice, our x is somewhere in between -3 and 5. Somewhere in between -3 and 5. Now, what type of dot am I going to put for -3? If you say solid, you are correct because it's less than or equal, or x is greater than or equal to. All right, in this case, same thing for 5. It is solid. So it means my x's are somewhere in between here, and what we're going to do is, since this goes this way, and my x's are smaller than 5, since they're going to meet here but not go any further than those numbers, I'm going to shade in this portion right here. Now that's how you would graph this particular problem. But let's say I want an interval notation. Interval notation is almost a mirror image of this graph. So you write down your two numbers, -3 and 5. Notice this is the low number. This is the high number. Okay? Now, both of these numbers have a solid dot on the graph. So what do you think we should put in its place? Will it be an open circle or a closed circle? I'm sorry, will it be a parenthesis or a bracket? Well, if you guessed right, this will be a bracket because it has a solid circle. Same thing with the 5. It has a solid circle. Therefore, we would close the bracket. So let me give you a few numbers here. Let me give you a few numbers and have you kind of guess and see which ones you would think would go with each other. So, for instance, if I gave you the graph 0 and 50, and I want 0 to be open, and I want 50 to be closed, and we're going to shade in between. Well, in this case, I write down my two numbers, so it's between 0 and 50. Since 0 is open, we put a parenthesis. Since 50 is closed, we put a bracket. So again, remember, parenthesis refers to open. Bracket refers to closed. All right. Now this concludes the lesson for interval notation for your inequalities. Oh, one last thing. There are three more things. All right? Three more things. I apologize. You're going to have to know three things here. You're going to have what we call set builder notation. So there's set builder. There's going to be set notation. There's going to be interval notation. And then there's going to be the words. Now, for instance, what's going to happen here, for set builder notation, it would look something like this. Parentheses, x, such that 5 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 19. This is set builder notation. So this is x. That means such that. All right? Your set notation is simply this. 5 less than x, which is less than or equal to 19. Using the same numbers, again, interval notation. We're going to put our 5, 19. Now, if you notice, this was open, and this is closed. Parenthesis goes with open, bracket goes with close, and that's what I'm going to put down here. Parenthesis around the 5, bracket around the 19. All right? And that's basically all we have to put. So, in words, x such that x is greater than 5 and x is less than or equal to 19. All right, that is the lessons that you will be going over tomorrow. Hopefully you will watch the video. I apologize for it being longer than normal. It's 12 minutes. It would normally only be 10 minutes or less. Thank you very much and have a great evening.